Hey McFly subscribers, so I have another review for you today. And of course you know it's a butter stick because you saw the name of the video, which is the Butterstick, Redington Butterstick. That is what I'm reviewing today. And it's the brand new one. This one is new, I think for 2018. They might have called it for 2019. It is 18 right now, it's 2018 right now, but it's their brand new one. They just came out with it. I think it's been out for only about 2, maybe 3 months at the time of filming this. This is my checklist that I've been doing with my latest videos for reviews. I'm just doing a quick checklist here so I don't forget anything. Just kind of giving as much info as I can get and have it here so I can give you the right info. But of course, you want to see the rod. It's mostly white everywhere except for right here, which they've got kind of a retro look. And then here's the rod tube, bright orange to match. And you can see they've got kind of a retro 70s look. We'll go into that in a little bit. But first, we're going to start with the specs, okay? This is something obviously you can get online. I'm going to give it to you, just in case you want to know it. Okay, so the one I've got is it's a 4-weight. This is the 4-weight version. You probably won't be able to read that here, but it's the 476-3, number 4 line, and it's 7 foot 6 inch. Okay, it is a 3-piece. Most I have yet to find. Well, I take that back. There are a few manufacturers that make 4 or even 5-piece. I think one I saw was a 6-piece, but for fiberglass, generally these are 3 pieces, 2 pieces, even just 1 piece, generally. Okay, I will say, I would like to see a 4 or a 5-piece, and especially a 6-piece fiberglass rod. I think these really, other than the fact that they're long, these are big. This is not a small thing. This won't fit in a backpack. So it's really not, good for backpacking, but I think overall fiberglass is wonderful for backpacking. I mean, it's hard to break, in the action of them and how they work that make them great for backpacking, except for that they're just so big and hard to bring with you, right? Anyway, let's get back into the specs. Sorry, I'm kind of diverging here. This one is great. This is the only one I've fished. I have not fished with the other weights, but I imagine that they're just as good. But this 4-weight is wonderful, especially for what I was doing, which is smaller creek, backcountry stuff, okay? And it is wonderful. Dry fly fishing, wonderful. And I really like the specs of this rod. The 7 foot 6 is about perfect. You get a little more distance cast with it. The line 4-weight, kind of more, because it is such a more flexible rod. It acts more like a 3-weight, which in my opinion is perfect for those backcountry streams that I fish, especially in my location. Your area might differ, but where I'm at, that 4-weight is, for this, 3-weight generally, but this rod, the 4-weight is perfect, okay? Because it is so slow. The action is so slow. It kind of acts more like a 3-weight. But they come in anywhere from a 1-weight to an 8-weight. They skip 7. They have everything other than a 7-weight. So they go to 6 and then they go to 8. The 1-weight, obviously, this is a very small creek, tiny fish. Probably bluegill. Same thing with the 2-weight. Both are small, 5 foot 9 inch for the 1-weight and 6 foot for the 2-weight. I think those two would be great for bluegill, other kind of panfish, very small trout, tiny little creeks. I think that would probably excel and probably be really good. If that's what you're looking for. The 3-weight is probably where I would start with what I would use. I mean, it would be really cool to have a 1-weight for those tiny panfish, but really a 3-weight is probably where I would start for what I'm doing. I think the 3 and 4 is my, perfect weight for my area with this rod. I think the 3-weight might be a little light for certain creeks that I go to, but perfect for other ones that maybe the fish are not going to be, too big. This 4-weight just was wonderful, perfect for the places that I took it. And then 5-weight, I think the 5 or 6-weight, those would be perfect for a place like the San Juan, where you want something that's going to protect light tippet, which being such a very slow rod Fiberglass, you're going to protect light tippet, you're going to protect small flies, it's not going to rip it out of the fish's mouth. Even with a heavy hook set with this, probably not going to rip it out of the fish's mouth. So the 5 and 6 weight I think are perfect for that. They're both 8 foot, so this is 7'6", the 3 weight was 7 foot. Those two are 8 foot, so the 5 and 6 weight. Personally, I don't see much use except for maybe some saltwater if you really want to do it with the 8 weight. Fiberglass is really not my go-to with saltwater. It's just how I fish. Doesn't mean that you don't have to fish it like that, but that's my take on their lineup. I just don't see much application for the 8 weight except for if you just want something special, you want to fish fiberglass for bigger fish, maybe, okay? But none of these are going to be this rod just does not cast big streamers very well, so I don't see that as being the best rod for redfish or big bass or striper, or definitely not pike. Doesn't mean that people can't do it, doesn't mean you can't do it, but just in my opinion of what I would take, that wouldn't be my go-to rod. I wouldn't take this as an 8 weight. That probably would not be something I would buy. 5 and 6 I would for places like San Juan. I think it would be perfect for that. But the 8 weight just doesn't seem like something I would need. But that's probably why they skipped the 7. They went straight from 6 to 8. It's probably not, their biggest market, okay, is those heavier action. I mean, really, fiberglass shines, in my opinion, in the small creeks, okay? Small fish, tiny creeks, shorter rods, you want it to load at shorter distance because you're not getting these, ridiculously long 100-foot casts. That's not what you need in these small creeks. And so you want something that is going to load the rod in shorter distance, and that's where these 3, 4, even 2 and 1 weights are ideal. And even on the San Juan, like I said, 5 or 6 weight, perfect, I think, for that. So they have a neat lineup. I do like it. I think the lengths of the rods are perfect for the weights and what their uses would be for. The action is slow, very slow, being fiberglass. But I will say there's a little pop to it, so I'm not going to call it extremely slow. It is slow, and it's on the borderline of extreme because it is fiberglass. It is a slow rod. I have fished other fiberglass in the past, and those are like noodles, and this doesn't have that. There is a little backbone. Granted, there, as you can see, there's flex though. Okay, there is flex in that backbone. Even without the rest of the rod, there's flex. So it does flex into the backbone. So it is very slow, but it is not extremely slow. There is a little stiffness to this. There is a little power behind it, and you can actually oomph something out there with a little more weight to it. Even medium-sized, small-sized streamers. In fact, I was fishing a woolly bugger with this in one of my trips, and it did fine. Being slow, it's not going to power a woolly bugger out there 100 feet like a maybe Sage X would, a very stiff rod, but it does the trick, and you can actually still do it. There is some oomph, so I can't really call it extremely slow. I think it's a great action if you're looking for a fiberglass rod. So let's move on to price. The 1 to 5 weights are $249.99, so basically $250, the 1 weight to the 5 weight. And then they changed the handle style. So this is the handle. We'll talk about that a little more in depth. It's not a locking handle at all. It's just these slide things that kind of move up and hold your reel. And then they step up to a locking reel seat, and it is a little more heavy duty, the reel seat. So I think that's why they jumped in price. Probably also because there's more material and a heavier weight as well. But they did change the grip on it. So the 6 and 8 weight both are $279. They jumped up $30, it looks like. So, but I think overall that's a decent price for this rod. I fished Orvis's, I think they call it the Superfine. Have fished it before, and I liked it. And in fact, that was one of my more favorite of the glass rods out there. Of course, there are some custom makers that, like, I think they call it Blue rods or whatever, that make some really high quality fiberglass rods, and their blanks are good, but I'm talking about like the main, name brand, non-custom, that kind of stuff. Name brand rods, Orvis was probably one of my favorites. I found the old Butterstick to be a little too slow. There was not very much oomph to it. It had kind of a heavier swing weight, and I really like the Superfine. This actually I like better. This new one is better than the Superfine in my opinion, and it's much cheaper. I think the Superfine, shoot, I should have written it down, guys, but I think it goes for about $400, $399, somewhere around there, maybe $350. But I do know it's much more expensive, that Superfine glass rod. It's nice, but I like this one better, okay? So for the price, I really like the price. I think they have a good price set, okay? Is it great? No. I mean, it's still $250. That's a lot of money. But I think it is well worth the $250. So in my opinion, for a quality rod like this, high quality, $250, no problems there. $279 for something with the locking reel seat, I get it. Still, no problems there, okay? In my opinion, that's a well-earned price. It's not cheap, it's not inexpensive, they're high-quality rods. Alright, so let's move into what its use is. We kind of already touched on that. Really depends on the action of the rod. I kind of said, you know, the 1 and 2 weight probably are going to be bream, or, you know, in the States we call it panfish, bluegill kind of rods, okay? Maybe even really tiny, really small creek, you know, small trout rods, okay? And 3 and 4 I find is where this shines. Again, like I said, these are small to medium-sized fish. I mean, this 4-weight, I have brought in 16 or 17-inch trout with it, and it did fine. It didn't feel like it was collapsing on me. It did okay. So with the 4-weight, maybe less with the 3-weight, but I didn't feel underpowered with that. Once you hit 20 inches, I would think that you're probably going to feel underpowered. I haven't caught a 20-inch fish yet on this, but I would think that at that point you would start feeling underpowered. That's when you'd want to step up to the 5-weight. But the 3 and 4-weight, probably medium size, even small size creeks, would do great. Even the 4-weight might do well on the San Juan, although I think 20-inch plus fish might be difficult. I think 3 and 4 probably, like I said, going to be medium to small creeks with up to 16, 17, 18-inch fish. 5 and 6 weight I think are going to be ideal for tailwaters like the San Juan, fishing small hooks, and you know, sometimes big fish, okay? So you have the ability to have a lot more play with that slow action rod, okay? The other thing with its use, this rod is not going to break. Well, I mean, it can break. I take that back. Don't try to break this. If I took this right now and just took the end and went, I probably could break this, okay? But in normal use, besides slamming in a car door, that's not going to break, okay? In fact, if you guys ever remember those commercials for the Ugly Stick a long time ago, they were fiberglass rods, and they could like take the end and bend it all the way one end to the other and touch the reel, right? You remember those. You could probably do the same thing with this. I'm not going to do it, but I am going to step outside right now and I am going to bend it down. You can see just how well that bends. It's just not going to break on you. And that's why I think backcountry backpacking, this might be perfect, a rod like this. I mean, perfect for that. However, it's too long. I want a 5-piece or a 4-piece, and then I can maybe get it in a backpack. But this does not fit. But even so, it's just rare to break this rod, okay? It's almost impossible. I mean, really, in normal use, you're not going to snap this rod. Which brings me back to the underpowered feel. On a 4-weight, you might feel underpowered on a 20-inch fish. But you could really pull hard. You're not going to have as much torque because it's going to flex deep into the rod. But you can really pull still and not worry about breaking the rod. You might break your tippet before the rod, or you might pull the hook out depending on the size of the hook and size of the tippet. But you really could put a lot of oomph into pulling on the fish and not worry about this thing breaking. Another thing about this is I like to rig my rod up before I go, and then I stick it in my car. Now, luckily, I have a wagon. When the seats are down, you can slide that right in. But you know, every once in a while, you kind of catch the door, you catch something, and you know, all of a sudden, that tip of the rod you hit, and it's and you're like, oh no! But look at that. So if you do that, oops, you're not going to break the rod, okay? So you could if you really smash it hard, but it's just more give and easier on the fisherman, especially someone that is not super nice to their equipment. If you're not nice to your equipment and you're breaking rods left and right, maybe switch to a fiberglass. Also brings me back to that 8-weight. Just thought of something. You've got an expensive trip coming up where you need a backup rod. This could be a perfect backup rod, 8 or even 6-weight, for some of those ocean trips, those saltwater trips where you're taking out. Now this is not going to be the perfect rod for that, but you could have it as a backup in case you break your Sage X or whatever expensive rod you're bringing. If you do break it on a fish or something happens, you've got a backup and one that'll probably not break and it'll last you the rest of the trip. And you don't have to worry about that. You won't feel worried about it breaking. So that is something to think about. Really, all these, that's another idea, is that it's just more durable of a rod. One other thing about its use, smaller flies. I think on my last review I showed this exact popper, but it's a good example. The 8-weight might cast this okay, but 5-weight is just going to have trouble with this big popper like this. Even the 6-weight I think is going to have trouble because this is super resistant to the wind. So being that, it's going to have trouble, even on, I think, the 6-weight. The 8-weight probably would cast this fine. Now 6-weight Sage X, Sage Method, I have a Sage Method, 6-weight Sage Method, does great with this. I mean, this casts just fine. I mean, it's almost like it's not on there. I mean, for sure you're not going to be casting big, giant, honking, streamers like this. This is not something it's made for. I don't even think with the 8-weight it would do very well. You could probably get it out there and do it, but I don't think it's going to do really well with that, and that's why I don't really call this a pike rod, or some bigger saltwater fish. Easily you could cast these little guys, so maybe with that 8-weight or 6-weight, it would be good for redfish if you're fishing smaller flies. But again, this is smaller fly kind of territory. That's what this is. I was with the 4-weight casting some Chernobyls. I even was able to cast this, which had a little weight on the front end. This was tough though. This kind of started breaking down when I was doing that. I was fishing a lake and I was casting small streamers. Another thing with that 6-weight, maybe even 8, would be like carp fishing, where you got smaller flies. Throw out these little guys easily with the 6-weight. Totally could do it. Throw that out with the 6-weight, and then you've got, you can really put the oomph on a carp. I mean, it'll school you. It'll be fun with a 6-weight. You might want to go with 8-weight for this. But you can really, really pull and not worry about the rod breaking as much. So you could really I think that would be good for carp as well if you're not looking for super long distance. But it is not a long distance rod either. I was getting, I felt lucky if I was getting 60 feet. With it, and that was putting some effort in, okay? And I'm not the best caster. I know there's other people probably could get 75 feet easily with this, and I was struggling with 60 feet. But other fiberglass rods I've fished before, I was lucky to get 50 feet, maybe even 45 feet, that was luck. That was good, and my average was like 20 to 30 on fiberglass rods. This, my average was 40 or 50, easy. There was that was effortless at about 40 or 50 feet. And then once I hit 60, then it was starting to, really not hold its own. Of course, that's my casting ability. I'm not the best caster. There are other people that can do it. But you're not watching my review because of my excellent casting ability. You're watching because I'm just like you. I'm, maybe an average caster, maybe a little above average of what is out there. And most of you are in that same category, I'm not one of these guys that is going to go, that can, cast a mile every time. I'm not going to teach people how to cast. But most of you that are looking at buying, that are fishermen, that are not the most excellent casters, and you'll see what real world effort is on this rod. And I do still think for a fiberglass rod, it does well with casting. Most fiberglass are very short distance. You're putting a lot of effort in at 50 feet. This one, You have to, you know, it's a good 10 feet more at least. Maybe 65 feet I could get with it with a lot of effort. I don't think I was going to reach 75 with it. There's just no way. Not in my casting ability. Okay, but I didn't need that. I'm fishing small creeks, again, what it's made for. Plus I have a double taper fly line. If I had a weight forward line, I might get more distance. But with a double taper, I was more accurate at shorter distance. I used, the whole time fishing this, was a double taper line. Which means the very tip of this, the very front end, the first probably 15 feet of line, you just don't have a lot of weight to be able to cast. So when you're casting, you're just not getting a lot of oomph. However, this is a slow rod, and so it actually loads very quickly. Very, very quickly. And so even with 10, 15, 20 feet of line out with a double taper, you've got a little bit of load, and so therefore you can get a good cast in. I find where this shines with this double taper, this is Rio's LTDT, so light double taper. I find with this, where it shines is probably about 25 to about 40 feet is where this rod shines with this line. It has a little bit of load at a shorter distance. I just can't imagine, it'll probably be 5-10 feet, you might get a little bit of load with a front taper. So that being said, for the small creeks, fishing close by to you, you're not making extremely long casts, this is probably my favorite rod for these small creeks that I fish. It really was the most accurate rod I've ever used in that situation. It was light, a very light swing weight. It actually rivaled my 2-weight Redington Classic Trout, and this is a 4-weight. So, you know, it had a very light swing weight. No fatigue throughout the day. I was able to fish longer. Onto its looks. Kind of already touched on it. It's got a retro look to it. I think it looks amazing. I really love it. I mean, you know, it's white. It's all white with these really cool, really colorful kind of wraps on it. And it has just, in my opinion, I think it looks very 70s or 80s. It has that, and it's got really kind of scripted writing for Butterstick, which looks very, again, 70s and 80s look. Very colorful. I just think it's a really cool rod. Let's look at back here. You gotta rotate that to look on top, but it says Butterstick on there. Really cool looking. I do like the components of it. So the looks of it are quality. I like it. I like this two-tone here where it's black and then goes to the white. I really like that. Their stats on it is very small, scripted. Kind of looks nice. I mean, it's not over large, I don't think. Some of these they put, they have large on their logo and what the rod is, but here that's nice. It's just kind of, it's elegant looking. I don't think this is a bad looking rod. Also the grip, it's a cool looking grip. I like it, it's kind of just a straight taper down. There's no, sculptedness to it. No bump here, so I would like to see a little bump maybe outward right here for better grip. But again, that's not what this rod is for, and I think they do have that for the 6 and 8 weight, okay? But you don't really need it. I just would like to see it, personally. The 6 and 8 looks good. I don't have it on me, but I'll get a picture online. I'll post it up right now. You can see it looks good. Nothing amazing, but again, we're talking a $250 rod. It's not a $900 Sage, right? But I think overall, this is a really cool looking rod. It's definitely unique with these bright colors. However, if you're trying to stock a fish, is that best? I don't know. Bright colors might not be perfect. However, there is, some studies shown that if you're fishing white or a light color, and the fish sees it in the sky, this might actually be more invisible, right? Less visible to a fish if they're looking down and up into the sky. But most of the time you're fishing long distance, that angle is going to put you behind trees. Your backdrop is going to be trees, and it's going to be a little more noticeable. But it is cool looking, I will say. It looks great. I didn't really find that to be a problem. I was catching lots of fish with it. I didn't find them spooked, but that could be a problem. I don't know. Okay, maybe where you fish, or especially like carp fishing, that might be an issue. Power. I kind of went back into that, but fish fighting power, it's not a powerful rod. This is not going to be, easy bring a fish in, but it is going to be fun to bring a fish in. You're going to feel every single tail whip of that fish being such a super duper, flexible. Look at this. The whole thing flexes. It flexes all the way into the handle. You feel every vibration of the fish. So it's a fun rod, but it is not a power rod. You're not going to pull in, a 16-inch rainbow or brown or whatever in 10 seconds with this 4-weight. It's just not going to happen. You need to play a fish because it doesn't have the power. There's no backbone, really. But you do have, like I had said before, it's just not going to break. You don't have to worry about really putting a lot of torque on it. You could still pull hard. You're just not going to have that leverage on a fish the same way, if that makes sense. Maybe it is more fun that way though, okay? So maybe it's exactly what you want. Casting ability, I already touched on this, is not a power caster. You're not going to get long distance, but it does cast, okay? It does cast pretty well, and I find very accurate. Ease of use, well, it's slow. It is very slow. So you do feel your back cast, which is great if you're beginning into fishing and to fly fishing. You're going to feel when that rod loads very well. However, it is so slow, being a fiberglass. You really have to slow your cast down. When you're casting, it's just super slow. No trying to power it. None of this, which I have a tendency to do. When you do that, it collapses. You really got to be smooth, which is good. It teaches you that. Does that make it easy? No. I find this actually kind of super difficult to learn. In fact, when I first took this out, I was not super accurate with it. I was having trouble casting it because it is slower than I'm used to. Fiberglass is just not something I am used to. So if you are kind of starting, you have a graphite rod, or you've been fishing for a long time, never fished fiberglass, it is a different feel. It will take you a while to get used to, but once you get used to it, this thing has a very light swing weight, which is surprising for fiberglass. Let's look at all the stats on fiberglass most of the time. Of the negatives that you find is that it tends to be a heavy rod. They tend to be super slow and not good with long distance casting. This has a little power behind it. You can oomph a fly out there pretty well. You can fight a fish pretty decently. Also, the swing weight is really pretty light. Surprisingly, for this rod. I was very, very surprised with the swing weight of this rod. This rod felt like some of the lighter graphite rods. In fact, I've got graphite rods that felt heavier than this to swing. The swing weight, I was very pleasantly surprised with this, okay? So that being said, ease of use, you can fish this all day long without getting fatigued. Once you learn the cast, which it does take a little while, it is easy to use, but even so, there is a little thought behind your cast. You've got to think about it because you can't make these 80-foot bomb casts very well. The roll cast, it can roll cast pretty well. I've got a double taper line, which I think helps personally with the roll cast, at least with the distance part of the roll cast. It gets me a little more distance, a little more ease of use. But even so, the roll cast, you're just not getting that super long, really powerful roll cast. But you can roll cast with it pretty well, just not going to be as much as like maybe a 10-foot graphite rod like I have, which I use the same exact line for with my 10-foot graphite rod. It's a 10-foot 3-weight. It is a 4-weight, and that has a little more oomph behind it, a little more power. In fact, I can cast some heavier streamers even with that 3-weight versus this 4-weight, okay? But again, ease of use, for what you're doing, if you're just small creek fishing, depending on which model you get, but let's say it's the 4-weight, if you're just small creek fishing, the ease of use is great once you get used to it, okay guys? You gotta get used to that feel. Again, breakdown size is pretty large, so again, it's not as convenient, it's not as easy to bring with you. It's also hard to find rod tubes, so if you want to get one that has that bubble here for the reel, the one that can hold the reel on the rod as well, rather than just the tube, it's going to be hard to find something that's going to fit that perfectly. So casting, back to casting, kind of already talked about it. This is a slow rod, so expect it to cast like a slow rod. You're not going to get distance casts, like I've said already many times. You really got to slow down with how you cast. But once you get that timing down, once you get that down perfect, and almost you have to, just like a fast action rod where you're almost blind with your timing, this helps you perfect that timing, but you have to be perfect with that timing to get a good cast. That's the thing. It's, with a fast action rod, even if you're not perfect with it, it kind of gets it out there and you can get it going. This, you literally have to have that timing perfect. And when you feel that you've got that timing perfect, when you make that cast, it's a great feeling, because this rod is so accurate and so wonderful once you get that perfect cast down. It takes a little more effort from you, I think, to get that perfect cast, but when you do have it, I mean, the casting is precise. I mean, literally, here's a rubber band. I feel like I could almost hit that rubber band from 30 to 40 feet away, at least with this fly line. Now, if you had like a weight forward line, you might be 40 or 50 feet, and you probably load a little better at a little shorter range. But I find this roll cast a little better, and that's why I use the double taper. But I feel like I could hit something that small, right, land the fly in that from 30 to 40 feet every time. I mean, it's that good. It is really, really accurate, which is surprising because, again, generally in fiberglass you lose accuracy, and this is one of the more accurate rods I own. So they did an amazing job with that. Casting is great. Again, for shorter distances, smaller flies, it excels as a small creek. Build quality, great. I think it's solid. The cork, very little pitting going on. This, I've fished it quite a lot. It is dirty. Probably need to clean this, but it's still smooth. There's just, you don't feel the pitting. There is a little bit here, but it's nice and filled in. So it's not the best cork in the world, but it is a very high quality cork. It's still very smooth, very nice. It doesn't have that like bumpy feel like some of these that are really pitted. They use cheap cork. I have a few rods where you fish it one day and come back and it's just like, it's like braille on there. And this doesn't have that. It's a very nice, still smooth feel. It's not locking, but for some reason, you know, I was very pleasantly surprised. It holds a reel really well. I've got another Redington rod that has a locking reel seat. And you guys saw that review. It's the classic trout. And the reel seat keeps on dumping reels. I mean, it like literally drops reels all the time. And every 30 minutes I have to check and make sure that's re-screwed on there or it just comes off. This, I don't know if it's because the way that the cork is with this, it just kind of sticks in there and it's actually really kind of difficult to get it. There we go. I mean, you really got to put some effort in to get that off, which is good. You know, you're not gonna, I don't feel like you're gonna lose it. I was a little worried about that being a non-locking, like, all right, I gotta double check every few minutes, but no, I really didn't have to check at all, and I have not dumped a reel yet, so it's good. High quality reel seat. It does have a little indent, as you can see, where the reel sits, so it kind of really is nice. There's a little wobble. You know, with this kind of reel seat, you're always going to get that. There's a little wobble with the reel, even when it's in there nice and tight. Just a little bit, but not super noticeable. Build quality is great. There is even with the wraps, there's a little bit of spacing. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's nice. It's well done. I mean, it's not bad at all for the price point. I'm very happy with the build quality, every part, and even the rod tube. It's a nice rod tube. It's not bad at all. I like the design of it. I think that's really cool. It's very 70s look, which I think is really cool. Retro style. Being a glass rod, retro is good. Retro look is not a bad thing. It looks really cool. So build quality, great. I think it's top notch. For the price range, it is exactly what expected, if not a little better. All right, so the warranty. The warranty is great. In reality, I like it better than most of the manufacturers' warranties out there. I think Redington does a good job with it. They find that, you know, there is a problem with the rod, then they will replace it for free. Otherwise, if you hit the tip, for instance, with a bead head and then you break it on a fish, or whatever it may be, it will end up being $45. And they will fix it or replace it. So it's a really good warranty, I think. $45 is pretty inexpensive. Okay, there's not many rod companies out there that are that low of a price for fixing a broken rod. You break in a car door, anything, $45, that's a cost. That is pretty good. I'm very happy with that. So how they determine that, what it is I actually had to call them to find out exactly their process with it, because I have not broken a Redington before, so I haven't used their replacement service. But I called them and they said, what happens is if you, for instance, break it on a fish, or let's say the grip starts spinning on you, or something is damaged on the rod, and you think it's a manufacturer problem, what you do is you send it in to them. When they get it, they will review it, look it over, and they will decide whether it's a manufacturer defect or it's something you did. Now, I haven't used it, so I don't know, but I will say that Redington is a pretty good company, and I think they're going to be honest about that. I don't think they're going to sit and try to get every cent from you. I mean, really, $45 is nothing on to them. So I don't think I think they're going to really put that effort in to try to make sure it is something. If it is their fault, you're not going to get charged for it. Now, again, I haven't used them, but from my experience and people I've talked to that have used it, they seem pretty honest about it, right? But if you are, let's say, so you break the rod on a fish while you're fishing, not every time is it going to be fixed. Let's say earlier in the day you smacked it on a rock, like I did. If you guys remember, I fixed my Sage and sent it in. I smacked it on the rock and then it broke on a fish. It actually broke while casting, but I do know that I smacked it on a rock. Or you close in a car door, or whatever it may be, or you hit it with a bead head, or a hook or whatever while you're casting, land a good fish, you're pulling on it and it snaps. And your first thought, oh, it snapped on a fish, you weren't doing anything wrong, it might be your fault, or it might not be your fault, you might get it for free, but not necessarily. They will look at it and they can tell whether you hit it with the bead head or smash it, hit it on a rock or whatever, or if it's something like their fault like a thin wall on it or something. Too thin, or they just didn't wrap it right, or there was a manufacturer defect. I think that is a wonderful warranty. I think that is a great warranty, and it's really better than you would expect with the price point of this rod being only $250. The overall rating is 8 out of 10, in my opinion. There are a few things about it that don't make it a 9 or 10 out of 10, but overall, this is a wonderful rod. I mean, it is $250. It's not, I mean, if this was $150, I would call this a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10, because the price point just is great. Being $250, for a $250 rod, I would say that's an 8 out of 10, okay? If this was a $400 rod, I would call this a 6 out of 10. It just really does change, my perspective of the rod depending on the price. This, matched up next to something like a $800 Sage X, or a Scott Radiant, or some of these really nice higher end rods, it just doesn't really compare. But again, this is fiberglass. This is not a graphite rod. It's completely different market, completely different group of people that are looking to buy it. Generally, fiberglass rods are just not going to be $900 rods. It is a completely different group, made for different things, made for different types of fishing, and therefore, in my opinion, for what it's made for, it is an 8 out of 10, maybe even a 9 out of 10, specifically for small creek fishing. I am putting a link in the description section for both the Redington website, so you can kind of do a little more research on your own and find some of this info out, more than what I was able to tell you. I tried to give as much info as possible, but you can do a little more research if you want. So I'll put that link. I'm also going to put a link to Amazon. So if you are interested in buying this rod, and your local fly shop, first buy from your local fly shop before anywhere else. And if your local fly shop doesn't have it or can't get it in, or you just live too far from one, or whatever it may be, and you want to buy it online, please do me a favor and click that Amazon link below. It helps me, helps the channel. Well, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review of the Redington Butterstick. If you like this sort of thing, you want to watch more reviews, please hit that subscribe button. I will see you on the next video. Now you go catch some fish.